File number 191321, communication from the Department of Public Works relating to streetcar smart kiosks. Do we have any PowerPoint on this, or?
No, just a
Okay.
handout here.
Could you list me as voting yes on item 19, I think, whichever one I just missed?
19, yeah.
Thank you.
Got enough? More than enough? All right. Good morning. Jeff Polensky, Commissioner of Public Works, and I'm joined here by Mark Rosenberg, who is a part of our marketing and sponsorship firm that's helping us with, or helped us with this particular project. So when we started out, when we initiated the start of the streetcar, there were a couple components that were missing. One of which was really kind of that real-time information as to where the streetcars were along the route, and then kind of that next vehicle type of information. We always intended to attempt to fulfill that those gaps in communication. We did provide, we have a real-time app now that you can see that information, but this smart kiosk piece is a part of the next step to that. We went out with an RFP to identify a company that could bring a smart kiosk and really kind of fulfill a couple different things, but significantly in part providing that real-time information of the streetcar, that next vehicle coming. So we would have these smart kiosks at the stations. It would provide you the next vehicle arriving at X time. But then also what these smart kiosks provided, there's all sorts of other benefits, one of which there is a revenue benefit to the streetcar as well. One of the things that we have indicated is that we're trying to maximize revenues through sponsorship and advertisement. This is one of those opportunities for us. By allowing or affording this company to be able to come in and establish locations at our stations and at other strategic locations off the route to provide kind of that connection with the streetcar route. There's also an advertisement component to it. And we, as a part of this agreement, we are getting a certain proportion of that revenue back to us for our operations. And I'll let maybe Mark talk a little bit about some of the other kind of pieces that come with these smart kiosks, but there's certainly a lot of local content as well.
Let me get to the bottom line here for purposes of today's discussion. Mm-hmm. So the plan is to install 33 of these, is that correct? 35. Mainly at stations, but not exclusively at stations, in areas adjacent to and within walking distance of stations, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Now, is there a map in the file about where these are going to go, or don't? Because this is a pretty thin file. Is there anything in the...
No, so right now we are working on the locations. Primarily, and we are working with stakeholders to make sure that we're in locations that aren't causing any significant challenges for us.
Are physical boxes that are approximately 41 inches wide, 11 feet 6 inches tall, is that correct? No. 11 inches deep and 102 feet high, so that's almost 9 feet tall, right?
Yes. And the screen itself is basically a 55-inch digital screen. It's
basically a big screen TV, an LED or whatever kind of big screen TV inside of a box.
Correct. And they're interactive. Interactive.
And I understand they also have microphones and video capabilities, which can double as like security.
Yeah, each kiosk contains 360-degree surveillance cameras that MPD will have access to. There is an additional camera on there that can be used as kind of a selfie station for people to interact with the kiosk. It's just kind of an entertaining thing. They also contain local business directories, downtown event calendars, apps that will integrate with other transit systems, so someone could use the kiosk to find the nearest bubbler station, see bus lines, things of that nature as well. We really wanted something that was going to have a very local angle, so it's not just advertising, it's local content that the city can benefit from beyond those advertisements.
Okay, and we're entering into a lease agreement with a company who will own and install this equipment, is that correct?
Right, so we're basically giving the company the ability to install at their cost within kind of the central business district boundary, and upon our approval of those locations, these kiosks. And there's obviously there's the benefit back to us in kind of a revenue share.
And so that is in the form of a lease agreement, a licensing agreement? In what form is that agreement taking?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's really just a simple agreement. As I would say it's more of a, I don't know if there's a definition. I guess it would be kind of a lease agreement in perspective.
Well, they're locating these on the public right-of-way.
Yes, they are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the rent would be in the form of a fixed amount or a percentage of advertising revenue that's generated?
There's a percentage of the revenue that's generated. So the first 3 years, I believe it's 20% that we would get back, and then it grows. This is a 10-year agreement. It grows over that 10 years up to 33%. If they hit certain dollar amounts in what they get back for their revenue, that percentage could come sooner, that 33% percentage.
And this agreement's been signed?
Yes.
So we've basically now at a point of scheduling implementation, is that correct?
Correct. We're working on identifying the locations of where these would be. Again, a significant number of these will be at and on the stations themselves. There's other locations like near proximity. So for example, the stops on Ogden, trying to make that connection to Brady Street. I mean, it's a 4-block walk. Not many people really kind of make that connection.
You're right.
But having those kiosks available not only at the stations, but also on Brady Street helped to make that connection to the streetcar route.
And do we have any sense of the anticipated revenue?
Well, and we're being a little bit conservative, but it's probably in that $300,000 to $500,000 range
A year?
annually. Yes, it could be more.
Alderman Barkowski.
So these are 9 feet tall, right?
About 8.5.
8.5, okay. And so they're on the sidewalk right away, correct? So as far as liability, we have the whole scooter issue where we're asking people to ride the scooters on the sidewalk.
No, we're asking not to.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, yeah. Okay, good point, okay.
Definitely not.
Very good point, but, okay, but from a liability standpoint, they're going to have plenty of insurance, that kind of stuff for any of our pedestrians and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and certainly they have their insurance, but these are being located upon our approval. We're locating them in places that can accommodate them. We're not restricting ADA movement or any kind of, we're maintaining that pedestrian movement.
Okay. And so the advertising is going to go literally on this kiosk, right? It's on the base of the...
It'll be on the TV.
Yeah, so the digital screen, if nobody's interacting with the screen, there will be kind of a slideshow of advertisements that will scroll through until somebody interacts with
Like a
it.
changeable billboard.
Yep.
I think it's also important to note that as part of the agreement, 55% of the time on that slideshow is reserved for city content. So that could be public service messaging from city departments, things like that. So 45% would actually be
We can
true
put Public Works
advertising.
Committee meetings on there?
Sure.
They'll want to get on the hop really fast. So who's doing the solicitation for advertising? Is that the kiosk company?
Yeah, the vendor, Smart City Media, they're responsible for selling, and with our assistance, pointing them towards local contacts, but they're ultimately responsible for that.
Okay. And so, and do we know if there's 35 of these, so I guess you could sponsor 1 or 10 or 23?
Yeah, a lot of what they're doing is actually selling their entire network because they have these in numerous cities across the country. They're in Kansas City along their streetcar line. They're in Louisville, Greensboro, Little Rock. They're building a massive 300 kiosk build out in Dallas right now. So a lot of what they do is sell with that economy of scale where they're selling a national advertiser on 500 screens as opposed to 35 screens.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Kovac.
So these things will cycle through ads if nobody's interacting, but if you interact, it'll give you information you want. What about, how often do they make noise?
So there is the ability for an audio component, but we really have the discretion in where that might be used. They would have to come to us for that.
I would say, obviously, we'd want to use that for ADA accessibility, but other than that, I would hope these things aren't making noise.
Yeah,
I
we
would say
know
so.
that's a
I didn't
huge
know about the
disruption to
noise thing,
property
yeah.
owners. Well, it's an option, but it's not something that is, we haven't agreed to allow them to do that at their discretion, but I would agree, that is a good component on from an ADA.
The only exception would be for ADA, like we have these, talking traffic lights, which are necessary, there's federal law, and we want to make sure that there's accessibility everywhere. But short of that, we should not be, especially not on a regular basis, making noise in the public street.
I would agree.
Okay. Well, very good. So this is communication file, right? Yes.
Yes.
So Alderman Kovac moves to receive and place on file, and hearing no objection to that, so ordered. That brings us to item number